Good morning. My name is Gary Brooker, on staff I figured it out this summer. It hit me out of nowhere. 25 years at First Lutheran this summer. We came and gone and boom, and it really hit me when I had to clean out my office and move to a smaller one, and there was 25 years worth of files in there that I had to go through. I'll talk about that more in a minute. You may be seated. Now, some of you are looking for these, the children's bulletins that did not get printed this morning. In fact, not only did they not get printed, but I didn't finish them. So guess what? We have blank paper. That's my full confession. Well, I have more to confess in a minute. We're going to turn this into a learning lesson for you today. As you come, I'm going to put these, I'll give these to Gerald at the back is what I'm going to do, and you can pick one up there. I want you, by the end of the service today, all you kids with crayons out there, is to either have drawn a picture or made a list of the things that you have learned during the service today. Are there prizes? Of course there's prizes. Okay, so he'll take him to the back. You can go see him. Pictures, a list of the things you are learning during the service today. Either in the blessing time, during our time right now, because we're going to do something we're going to call a little game show in a few minutes, which I will get set up right here. I get to speak about 4 or 5 times a year at First Lutheran. I've been on staff, as I said, 25 years, 18 of those full-time, last 7 years part-time. I get to speak in front of hundreds of kids every year in gymnasium settings and thousands in classrooms. And I get asked, even by my own children, do you still get nervous when you... Yes, I still get nervous. I especially get nervous here on a Sunday morning when you're asked to be inspirational and educational and say something meaningful to 300 different people on a Sunday morning that come from diverse backgrounds and different perspectives and different life experiences. And I'm supposed to bring it all together, and you're all leaving here going, that was great. I'm just, whoo. Yeah, that's a little pressure. And this week at all 3 of my jobs, yes, 3 right now, was a crazy week. Ask my family. Dad was not around much. Dad was stressed out. And so this morning, yes, I'm nervous. Last night as I was preparing the last things before I went to bed, yes, I was nervous. In fact, I knew I was nervous because when my alarm went at 5:45 this morning, it woke me from a dream. I'm going to say nightmare. Nightmare was this. No lie. I had slept through both services. I'd slept through both services Sunday morning, and now we're at family lunch. And I'm not sure what was more disturbing to me was the fact that I had missed both services or the fact that nobody at lunch even said anything. Because if you can miss 2 services on Sunday morning and you were supposed to lead and nobody says anything, you know your time's done. So I think maybe that's prophetic. I don't know. I pray this morning these few minutes would be meaningful for all of us as we talk about important learnings. For instance, this summer, there's a few things that have come to mind for me, either learning or relearning in my own life. One is that it can't just be about the destination, that it's got to be about the journey. Because if we're always just living till we get to a certain spot or a certain place, we're going to miss out on a whole lot that is in store for us. For me, also, a reminder that relationships are hard work. Even ones in our own family, maybe hardest. Our work situations, our friendships, our church family. Relationships are hard and they take work. Another learning for me actually was a reminder that cilantro for some people tastes like soap. It's true, it's actually a thing. How many of you are in that category? Thank you. By the way, it is a scientific fact. Don't feel bad. You can say, my cilantro tastes like soap. I learned that 25 years of files bring both joy and sadness when I look at the number of lives over 25 years. The things we've accomplished together, church and school. The events that we've had. The pie making we did. From one teacher, my first year here, one teacher, to this. And yes, I think I probably threw out some files that I should not have thrown out because there's a lot of history there. I also learned that I'm not as brave as I think I am. A couple weeks ago, I challenged myself, went with a group of people hiking, backpacking for a day trip up on the Coquihalla to Needle Peak. Those of you that have been there, it's really high. It wasn't the hike it was strenuous and it was tough, but I'm in fairly good shape. It was when you got to the top and you had to maneuver through the rocks and the crevices and get pushed up to the top of this peak to actually see where you were going. And I was like, I forgot I'm afraid of heights. And then when I got there, my fear was, how am I going to get down? I was paralyzed by fear. I'm not as brave as sometimes I think I am. What are your learnings? What things are important for you? Are you pausing to say, what am I learning right now? Because God calls us to be lifelong learners. Experiential. Picking up some things along the way, relearning some things. Some of us having to relearn some things over and over again. And there's so many important things to learn. How do we know what's important and what's not? How do we know what we should be focusing on and what needs to just get put on the side burner? 2014, my family went to Mexico on a vacation and mission trip in the summer. And one of the signs that we saw there, which I've seen duplicated many times, is this sign right here that's going to go on the screen right now, and Megan puts it up there. It's a sign that looks like this. Oh, there it is. I also did not know that was prophetic, but it kind of was. But what is most important? What's important in your life? What do you spend time learning and doing? And what relationships do you remain involved in and putting time and energy into? I thought there's so much to learn, and I thought we'd start this portion with a little game called Are You Smart Enough? Okay, so I'm actually going to ask for 2 volunteers. I'm going to put you on the spot. I would love it if there was like an upper elementary age school kid that's really smart, or maybe early middle school years. And let's put them up against a teacher for this game. I think it would be fun to see. It's like that game show, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? The questions, I think you'll do okay on them, and there's prizes again at the end. Can I have an adult volunteer? I'm not going to choose any names, right? Where are we going to go? Okay, I can't pick on him because he's left the building. Mr. Balfour, would you come up here this morning? Would you represent the teachers? This has not been set up. I did not plan this with anybody else. Is there someone in middle school or upper elementary school that's willing to take on Mr. Balfour? Oh, yes, I love it. Thank you. Come on up. Yes, that's a brave soul. Here's what we're going to do. Here's your buzzer. So after I read the question, you can stand there with your hands behind your back. Why don't you shake hands? Mr. Balfour, you can say.
I just realized my awful mistake.
She said, I just realized my awful mistake. Thank you for being brave and coming up. By the way, you, although are not up here, you're playing along. And in order to be in on the prize, you need 100%. Okay? This is all facets of life that we're talking about. These are questions from random categories that affect us all. And this is what we're doing this morning because we're talking about important learnings. Okay? So if you know the answer, quickly touch it. It'll go like this.
That was easy.
That's an easy button. It says that was easy. Okay? And then we'll know that you touched in first, and I'll ask you, and you can give us the answer. Okay? Meanwhile, in your head, unlike the first service, do not yell out the answer. We'll remove you from the studio audience. There was one lady, without a doubt, at the first service, I said that 5 times. Every time she yelled out the answer. It's like, thankfully she was right, but it also gave everybody the right answer. Okay, here we go. First category is from language arts. Okay, I'll give you the category. In the following sentence, which word is the verb? The dog barked loudly. She says the answer is loudly. No, I think that one you got wrong. Do you want to take a chance?
I'm going to say barked.
Barked is the action word. Verb is the action. Yes.
I can't remember that.
That's okay. You know what? That's what we're going to prove this morning. Not everybody can know everything. So thank you. I didn't even tell you to do that, but that was good. I like when you get something wrong, because if everybody got everything right. Okay, so that was number 1. Here we go. Spell the word dilemma. Dilema. Right or wrong? There are two M's. Is she right? Two M's and an A? Somebody at the first service, I'm not going to tell you who it was, but her initials were Gwen Plitt. She said, she put up her hand, I'm an English major girl, I know what it is. Dilemna. I said, nope. That's column with the MN at the end, not dilemma. All right, here we go. Science question. Water boils at this degrees Celsius. 100 degrees Celsius. Yes, give him a hand. Well done. There we go. Remember, you're playing along. If you've got them all right so far, hands up. Oh, look at you go. Okay, here we go. Here's another science question. The Earth goes around the sun, or the sun goes around the Earth? The Earth orbits the sun. That is correct. Well done. By the way, there's some of you I already know you're already posing your emails on what am I doing up here playing a game show. It has a point. Bear with me. Health question. Is there more protein in beef or pinto beans? Yes.
Beef?
By far beef, but it also comes with cholesterol and saturated fats. Okay, there we go. Beans may not be technically better, but that's a different debate we're not going to have right now. The sun gives what vitamin to the body? Vitamin C. Very popular guess at the early service too. No, D is the correct answer. How many still with us? How many still 100%? Okay, the numbers are dwindling. That's good because I don't have that many prizes. Here we go. By the way, those of you that have your phones out Googling the answers to these questions, just put them away. All right. This is a physical activity question. One after my own heart. How long is a half marathon?
That was easy. 5K?
5K. For some people, that would be correct. It's 21.1 kilometers. 21.1 in a half marathon, 42.2 in a full. Thank you for trying. Okay. What percentage of the human body is made up of water? 70%. It's actually 50 to 60, but that's a really close guess. We're going to give you half points for that. You still don't get 100%, okay? But that's really good. Can you imagine 60% of our bodies is water? Crazy. All right. Largest muscle in the body is this. They're just so hesitant. On Family Feud, they tap in right away. I know that. Yep.
I don't know if it's the largest, but the most powerful? Tongue?
The tongue, he says, it is a powerful weapon. It's also a muscle, but it's not the one we're looking for. No, it's not the heart. It is the gluteus maximus, the most powerful, strongest muscle in the whole body. It keeps us upright and does lots of things. How many are still with us 100%? And then there was one. All right, still going. A math question. You have to answer within 5 questions. 12 times 8. No calculator. Okay, anybody? Hand up. 96, thank you. There you go, 96. Well done. Here we go. How do you calculate the total area of a room? Formula. Hey, don't yell it out. Square feet. But how do you get to square feet? How do you calculate it?
Assuming the room is square?
Yes.
Okay, length times width?
Length times width. Thank you very much. That's exactly what we're looking for. I know, it was that easy. It was really that easy. Okay, manners question. If someone says thank you, you should say?
That was easy.
You're welcome. That's easy. Okay, I'm telling you, do not yell out the answers, please. We're trying to keep them honest here. Okay, second manners question. Where should you look when someone is shaking your hand? In the eyes. Do you know that this is not so common? I work with grade 6s in the public school system. This has got to be taught. It's awkward. It is. And the more we spend time communicating with devices, the less we spend looking at people's eyes. And the more is lost in translation. Last couple questions from the spiritual realm. There's an Old Testament boy who killed a giant. His name was? Okay. The answer is David. Thank you. Okay. Second question. When asked the most important commandment, Jesus answered with this.
That was easy.
Yes?
Love God.
Love God. That would be for 50%. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor. He combined all of them and put them into two and says, this is the deal. That was Jesus' words. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Final one. If you had to recite word for word John 3:16, could you do it?
That was easy.
For God so loved the world that he gave his only son.
Yep.
Is that it?
That's it. That whoever believes in him should
Not perish but have eternal life.
not perish but have eternal life. Well done. And because I can see your boat sweating already, thank you. Give them a hand for helping us this morning. I think we're going to call that a draw. Anybody got 100%? Right there. All right. I do have a gift certificate for you later. You will see me. What things are important? Why would I do that? Because here's the thing. There are facts coming at us every day, and we live in a digital age where there are more facts than ever before. And we have to have a fact checker on the facts because we don't know what facts are true and what are false, and who's making up news and who's giving us the true goods. And so this morning we want to talk about, if we're going to spend time learning, what are we spending time on? What's important? Maybe it depends on who you are or what your job is in life, or whether you're a student. For instance, if you're a doctor and you're a heart doctor, we want heart doctors to know about the heart. We don't expect them necessarily to be able to fix the brakes on your car. Okay? But if you need a mechanic, you want the mechanic to know about your car, not necessarily about how to fix your heart. Just makes sense. If you're a counselor, you go to a counselor, you expect the counselor to help you in your area of need, whether it's relationship or whether it's grieving. You wouldn't necessarily ask them how to cook your mom's favorite dish. So are there certain facts that we learn in life because we need to know them for our jobs or for practical things along the way? Are there things that all humans need to know? Yes, there actually are. Basic hygiene, food safe practices, that stop signs mean stop. Because any of those, if you blow through those or you do not know those, you're not going to live very long. Calendars and clocks are essential for the functioning in this world. How to treat others. We've proven over and over, generation after generation, you don't know how to treat others, it doesn't end well. Forgiveness. And then we get to this. Mine is this color right now. I've used this since 2004 youth gathering. I like it because I've got highlights and tabs and bookmarks, and it's almost getting too small for me to read now, but that's a different topic. Some of you had your very first one that was leather-bound, and your name was on the front. Maybe your confirmation verse was there, and all of Jesus' words were in red. How many is that? That was your first Bible that you had that was your very own. Anybody? Few in the room. I have one of those too. It's in King James English. I don't understand it very well. It sits on my shelf. This one gets used way more. But I'm going to say to you that most of you in this room have heard and know some stories of the Bible, but very few of us actually know how the Bible came to be. And I'm also going to suggest this morning that unless we take time to figure that out, we might be apt to miss the importance of this very book. See, we have people in our faith community, maybe even some that are here this morning, that have wandered away and maybe are struggling. Because when we grow up, we've learned some stories in our youth that told us certain things about this Bible. And certain things came out of here. But without understanding why they're there and how it came to be, often they seem contradictory. So either we start to accept them blindly as we keep going, or they're in such contradiction and makes no sense that we actually walk away from the faith. And some of you have kids and grandkids that have walked away from the faith because they might know some of the stories, but they don't know how this story came to be. So I hope that you'll take a few minutes with me this morning, tied into our lesson for today, to look at the importance of this book. See, it didn't come like this, by the way. We didn't just get the Bible or your leather-bound one or this paper one. It came to be because of something spectacular that happened. In our reading for today that Sam read from John chapter 20, we see usually what we would classify as an Easter season story, where the disciples are huddled in a room, and the guy that they had been following and saying he's a really good teacher and done miraculous things, but now he's dead, appears in the room. And he says, "Peace be to you." Not, "I can't believe you abandoned me. I can't believe you did not understand what I was telling to you." Not, "Where were you all this time? What, are you that dense?" Peace be to you. John chapter 20. See, even other books outside of the Bible, historians refer to Jesus, this guy that lived. Jesus, this guy that taught incredible things. Jesus, this guy that did miraculous things. Yes. Outside books from the Bible, history books, talk about a man who did miraculous things at society at that time. But if that was the end of the story, we still get know the Bible. The Bible was not written at this time. But what happens in John chapter 20 initiates this. A dead man shows up alive. And it is then that he appears to over 500 people. Again, not just biblical sources say this. Outside biblical sources, historians of the time say there was this guy that was supposedly dead and now he's alive and people have seen him. And he shows up in the room and says, "Look at the nail prints and the spear print, and I'm alive. Peace be to you." And those around him was like, "This has never happened before. This is noteworthy." And people started writing this down. They thought, we got to document this guy's life because something spectacular has happened. Yes, he's done some miracles, he taught some things, but now something really phenomenal has happened. A dead man is walking. And Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and many others, by the way, started to document the life of Jesus. The beginning of the Bible. We still don't have a Bible. We have 4 letters written by 4 different guys talking about this guy Jesus, documenting his life because they thought it was important. But it was only then that people started looking back to the religion of the day, which was of old, the oldest ancient religion, which was the Jewish religion of the time. And they saw, wait a minute, Jesus said there's one God. Wait a minute. All the law and the prophets, he pointed back, and now we've got this pointing forward, because all the law and the prophets point forward to one guy, to Jesus. Okay, why are we doing this? We're doing this because of this. This book is confusing. It's hard. When we talk about important things to learn, I'd much rather learn my times table than trying to figure out what God is trying to say to me in here. In John chapter 20, we get the beginning of 2 very important things. We get to see why this book even exists, why they started to put things together, why in the 300 AD the church leaders got together and said, we got to figure out what is our book that's going to carry us through. But it started with a dead man coming back to life. So, how it came to be, and the second question is, why? Why do we have this? Why is it important? And Jesus himself tells us right here at the end of John chapter 20, why. He said, John writes this, "These things were written," John says. There's other people writing other things, and there's more things than he's done, but these ones appear in this book for a reason. "These things are written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, the Messiah, the chosen one, the Savior of the world, if you wish, and that by believing you would have life in his name." This exists for one purpose: that we would have life. Math equations are important. They will not give you life. Science questions are important. They might keep you alive for a while, but they will not give you life. They might help you to exist. But true life John writes, and Jesus affirms, is only found in him. And eternal life is really only found in him. Stick with me. Are you existing or are you living? Are you really living? Because that's what God desires. We're told right here in John chapter 20. He wants us to have life, and he wants us to have it abundantly. He wants us to have it eternally. Wherever you are on that journey, don't make it just about the destination. Maybe this morning, start living. So what's important, I believe, the most important thing we could teach or learn, because it affects everything else, is at the heart of this book. It's why we exist as a church family. It's why the school was started in the first place, so that people would believe and have life in his name. Another important learning is that this world is broken. Pastor Keith talked about it last week. I talked about the reason that we do some spiritual disciplines. Because Jesus knew this. He knew it was broken. That's why he came. And in fact, he knew that it wasn't a matter of if you were going to have trouble, and if you were going to face sickness, and if you were going to face death, or if you were going to have struggles in your relationships. It was when. Because he said, in this world you will have trouble. Not if, not maybe. But take heart, he said, I've overcome the world. The guy at the center of this book knew that we're broken. That's why he came. The guy at the center of this book who came back to life says to you and to me, I know you're broken. I know your world's hurting. I know there are things in your life you might think are okay, but are they really? And he says, I've come to give you life. Take heart. I've overcome the world. Each of us gets this number of hours in a week. I should ask this question, but it's 168. 168 hours every week. We might get different numbers of weeks and different numbers of days in our life and different numbers of years. But every week, this week ahead, unless God decides to take us, we get 168 hours. What do you do with yours? I did a scary thing this week. I actually started listing what I did with my 168 hours this last week. If you ever want to be totally humbled and decide what's really important to you, start doing this. Because they say what you spend your money on and what you spend your time on is what's important to you. If that's the case, 168 hours. How many of you are spent sleeping? How many of you are spent eating? How many of you are spent getting pretty or masculine or combing your hair? Colin and I, we have a little less time than the rest of you doing that, but we're still there, right? How many hours do you spend in relationships? How many hours do you spend watching television or Netflix? How many hours do you spend playing video games? How many hours do you spend on social media? How many hours do you spend just surfing somewhere? How many hours do you spend gazing into space, not doing anything? How many times do you spend hours in... For me, I looked at my hours this last week running. It's not only my stress reliever, it's the way I try to stay healthy. But I compared that to my devotional time. Running 1. That's as your church worker. How about you? How many hours do you spend connecting with the very one that created you and wants something more for your life? Not because you have to, but because you want to, because he's giving us life. If this book is life-giving, how do we connect with his word? Pastor Keith last week talked about different ways people do. Devotional life, music, being out in nature, taking time to pause and stop to pray. How long? How many minutes? Is it representative of something that's important to you and to me? And for most of us, sadly, we defer to the internet. We defer to sitting on the couch. We defer to, I'd like another hour's sleep. We defer to whatever it is. Jesus said there's 2 things that are important. If you want to know the commandments, because the disciples tried to say, what's the most important? He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And love your neighbor as yourself. If you want to know how to live your 168 hours a week, start with that. Let's look at Jesus. What's important? And knowing we're not going to ever live up and get the 100% on the quiz just like we did there, we're not going to ever love him perfectly or love those around us, then, okay, that's why he came. We get the story of Mary and Martha where Jesus is coming to their house. Martha's busy doing all the things that she needs to do to get ready. Mary just says, hey, I'm going to chill out and hang out with Jesus. And Martha's like, come on, help me out here, do some things. And Jesus says this. He says, there's one thing needful, and Mary has chosen that thing the most excellent way. We can learn something from Jesus' story there, that the most thing needful is to actually spend some time with him. Oh, it doesn't say that everything else is wrong and you shouldn't watch Netflix, do social media. But how are you going to spend your 168 hours? Does he deserve some of it? Not so he can love you more with a checklist, but because he gives life. He reminds us who we are and whose we are when we connect with him. Important learning. We need to be reminded of this because we are human and we forget lots of things. We need to learn and relearn some really important lessons. This morning, I hope that you will know the story from John chapter 20, that he came back to life. That's why this started to be created. And then use that as a jumping off point this fall. Read all of John. Start there. At Men's Theology Pub Tuesday night, we're going to look at 4 different days for the next 4 months. I'm choosing because I get to. What we're going to do is actually focus on how this whole thing came to be and how it connects together. Because it's important, not just the stories in it, but how it came to be. Secondly, that you would know this. John chapter 20, 31. These things are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Son of God, the Messiah, the Savior of the world. And by believing, you would have life in his name. He wants us to know that. For now and all eternity, that your mistakes, your brokenness and mine paid for on the cross, but then brought to new life and redeemed by Jesus. In my house growing up, my mom loved to bake. She loved to make pickles. She loved to host people and make really good dishes. She was a good cook. And I remember growing up, I'd say, Mom, you can make that one again. Like, that's a gooder. You can make that again. Or there's some of you that will understand this. When your child is really small, Erin, I remember this. I would throw her up in the air and then catch her, and she'd giggle and laugh, and then she'd say, do it again, Dad. Do it again. Last Sunday, the band did a song that I've asked them to do it again today. Because the message ties into this life-giving message that Jesus wants to speak to you and to me every day, I believe, to remind us who we are and whose we are. And it's only in connecting with that message that we're given life, both now and for all eternity.